Right. Okay, welcome everyone to another episode of Bayyinah and Friends. My name is Ronoko Jr., author, publisher of Thoroughbred Books. Today is Thursday, December 3rd, 2020, the year of clear vision. So thank you for joining us for another episode. We have a very special guest this afternoon. Looking forward to the exchange between these two potomitan of our communities, pillars of the community who share so much knowledge and wisdom to us freely. So looking forward to it. And I will introduce our host here this afternoon, Professor Bayyinah Bello.
Thank you, Franz. Thank you to all of you, all 25 present. So that means if the first minute we have 25, that means it's really going to grow. So welcome. Thank you very much to everyone. As you know, we like to take care of our body when we get started. So today, more than as usual, we will do our 7 deep breaths before we get started. We'll sit back, put your feet flat on the floor, put your hands on your knees, your vertebrae properly aligned. We'll breathe through the nose, pull it in through the nose, and send it out through the mouth. We're going to do 7 of them. But remember, everything we do, we have to put intention. Intention. Don't do things with no intention. So today, we have a global African person with us. So we are going to globally send health and power. We breathe in health and power to all of us, and we breathe out health and power to all of the family. So let's begin. Breathe in, hold. Breathe out, relax. 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 Remember your intention. The last one, breathe in, hold. Breathe out, relax. Thank you very much. Health and power to all the members of our family. Health means mental health, spiritual health, psychological health, health in every way. When we look at a planet with problems with desertification, with rivers all soil, that is because we are sick. Only sick people go about spoiling what they desperately need to live. So our breathing, as we work on our breathing, will develop. We awaken ourselves, we awaken our consciousness, we awaken our ability to determine where we want to be, what we want to happen on our planet Earth. We are the natural guardian of this planet. Welcome, Brother Ronoko Rashidi. The last time I saw you, we were in Haiti. And today we are going to share those 2 hours and speak about some of the things that are most important to you, as well as speak about our soup program. Because everything we do in December, the soup is always present. So welcome, Professor Ronoko Rashidi. Please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me, sister. It's an honor and a delight. I'm a historian and an anthropologist. I'm all about Africa. Right now, I'm based in Southern California. I'm a father. My daughter lives in Paris, of Senegalese roots. I love Black people. I love Africa. I'm a writer. I would say I am a traveler, but for the last 8 months or so, that's been off the But the good thing about it is now I know about Zoom, and I'm able to do things I haven't done before. And I have to say, it's really, people say a lot of stuff. They're diplomatic, and sometimes they're trying to be nice. But I can honestly say it's really an honor to be on this show with you. I've admired you for a long time. And not only that, but I have an intense interest in the Haitian Revolution and the history of Haiti. So I'm almost willing to bet you that I'm supposed to be the guest, and I guess I'm the one who's going to be interviewed. You, in fact, will be interviewed. I have so many questions.
Well, we'll enjoy both. We both have a lot of things in common, so we'll be sharing and exchanging throughout those 2 hours. Again, welcome. It is really a great honor for us to have you. And I know many of our audience are more than happy to see you on Bayyinah and Friends today. So let's begin with, it's not because you spent 8 months not traveling that it changes that you are an absolute global African presence person. So please tell us a little bit about your trips and what you have gathered for us through those trips.
Well, in the last 20 years, I visited 125 countries. I've been on all sides of Earth. If I could find some Black people down at the South Pole, I'd go down there and check them out. I'm interested in the global African experience, and I recognize that there is a diaspora that began before slavery. Now, I don't want to minimize the suffering of our ancestors. And with you, I know we can talk about it because we're also talking about resistance to enslavement, not just that we got beat down. But my interest really began looking at Black folk long before slavery. And I think that we make a mistake when we start at that point. And so early on, I started to travel to various parts of Asia. Of course, I've been fortunate to have visited 34 countries in Africa now, including Benin quite recently. So I was able to get some more background about Toussaint and Vodun. Of course, I have sisters and brothers in America before Columbus as well. That's something that perhaps we could talk about a little bit more. And at the end of this month, I'm going to do a really visual webinar on the Black presence in Australia and the Pacific Islands. So for me, when I talk about the diaspora, I'm not just talking about the Americas and Europe, but a global African experience. So that's really who I am, and that's what I've been about. I've written and edited 22 books now. Some of them have been published in French. So that's it. That's enough for Ronoko.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And it shows clearly how humble you are. Because if I was presenting you, I'd probably need the entire hour. So
well, let me interview you now. Let me ask you some questions. Serious business. Who to you is the most significant person in the history of Haiti? One person.
One person, Toya.
Yeah.
The
Why?
Toya. This is the woman who raised Dessalines.
Tell me about her, please.
Okay. So I'll have to send France. We'll have to send the book to Brother Ronoko. Sheroes of the Haitian Revolution. So we'll have to send you this book.
This is your new book.
Yes.
Okay.
Santoya is on the cover of that book. This is a woman from Dahomey, a military woman. She was Akbaraya in Dahomey. So that means
how do you know she was from Dahomey?
Well, she herself has transmitted some of the information. And in our, I spent about 7 years going about interviewing old people. And that's how I became aware that Haiti had all these centenarians, people that are 100, 110, 120, 130, and with a clear mind, and they could tell you what their grandmother said and then what their father said, et cetera, et cetera. So while doing this work, that's when I really became aware of what our history was like. Because I become aware that the stuff I read in the books was so far from what the reality is. For example, the absence of women. Whereas you have a woman like Marie-Jeanne who had a troop of 1,000 women and not mentioned in history in the books.
Who is this sister? Who is this sister you're talking about?
Marie-Jeanne is a woman, is a mixture of Taino and African.
Okay.
And from what she says, from what we've gotten from oral history, her aunt directed the troop before her. And when the aunt was passing away, she named her to be at the head of the troop and told her that she could help any troop fighting for freedom, but cannot join anybody. So they have to stay on their own. They have to be their own. And so there are only women in that troop. And that's the only example I've found so far of exclusively women. For example, Tantoya's troops, there were plenty of men, mostly men. And at some point, she was the only woman heading her troop. Whereas Marie-Jeanne, it's all women. So it's, as we walked up and down the hills, there's a saying in our country, behind a hill, more hills. So as we go up and down hills, we met many people who had a knowledge of our history that was not in the books. So it is with them that I went to school and studied and learned about many. But the funny thing is, after I got educated by the elders, then I start finding documents that would mention here and there some little something about this, some little something about that. For example, in the books, they only say, Marie-Jeanne was a Creta Pierrot and she did this, that, maybe two sentences.
What does that mean?
Sorry?
You said she was a what? You gave a...
She was a fighting woman. Okay, she was fighting in the Battle of Creta Pierrot. Okay? But they never mentioned she ran her own troops. She had 1,000 women. She was also involved in disguising herself. She could be a Black woman at 10. She is a mulatto woman at 3. She's some white woman at 7 at a dinner. She would disguise herself and get in and out. She did a lot of espionage.
How was it that women were able to rise to positions like that in Haiti? I've never heard of anything like that in Jamaica or whatever. Or is it just that we don't know about it?
Jamaica had Nani. Jamaica had some women too. The thing is, we have to understand, and I'm going to stop here, your interview. We're going to go to mine. Yes. Jamaica had Nani. Brazil had a number of women. All over there were women.
Oh, Brazil.
But they have written the history in a way that blocks out the presence of women. And that's what the elders did for me. Once they opened my eyes to that, then I changed the way I look at history. So whenever I look for who was his mother. Did he have any sister? And that's how I start to see holding him. Toussaint Louverture, who's so famous, they never mentioned that Grande Pélagie was his adoptive mother in Saint-Domingue. And when they arrested him, she was 105. His godfather, Pierre Simon Baptiste, when they arrested Toussaint, was 116 years old. But until I start looking for the women, even little tiny sentences, whatever I could find, that's when, they're mentioned so insignificantly in the so-called official stories that you read and don't see it.
What about this woman they call the Tigress or something like that? I think I've seen an image of her on the currency. She's a woman in a military uniform. She's called the Tigress or something, or Dessalines referred to.
Sanit Belair?
Yeah, that's what you've been talking about.
She's a lieutenant. She was a lieutenant. There were quite a few women officers in the army. But she was a particular, she is. But hey, now your interview is over. My interview begins.
All right, sister, I submit.
So,
what do you want to know?
Right. You mentioned that, Asia. Tell us a little bit about some of what you discovered in Asia, please.
Well, Asia is so big, and it's really the first place I started to explore after the Nile Valley. Around 1980, long time ago now, I wanted to join a think tank in Southern California, all these powerful African scholars, intellects. And they said, look, you're kind of young. If you want to join us, you want to hang out with the big boys, you have to prove yourself. So what are you going to do? So I began to look at the Black presence in India. And that really became my foundation. India has more Black people than any country in the world.
That's
but it
true.
also causes us to look at what a Black person is. And what is an African? I'm 66 now, glad to be an elder. And I've been doing this work since I was about 17, 18 years old. Pan-Africanist all that time, big time Garveyite. But I still don't have a precise definition of what an African is. If we can trace everybody's lineage to Africa, you could make the claim that everybody is an African, or at least we all have African roots. And so looking at the Black presence in India, it causes me to look at identity. And another question becomes, what do we have in common besides a phenotype and a common history of oppression? What ties all of us together? Now, interestingly enough, both Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X talked about the Black presence in India. They talked about what Garvey said in Philosophy and Opinions, these millions of Negroes in Southern India. So I wanted to pursue that. I traveled there 3 times. Of course, China is very, very big now. I don't know how China is in Haiti and the Caribbean, but China seems to have its tentacles all over Africa itself. And so I think it's important to talk about the historical relationship between Africans and China, Africans in China. It's not a new phenomenon. Of course, you have Black people throughout the Islamic areas of Southwest Asia. Maybe I shouldn't put it that way. But for example, you have in southern Iraq 3 massive insurrections of African people. African people were taken from East Africa to southern Iraq and other parts of Asia and made to work in very harsh conditions, removing salt from the soil so that the Arabs could grow dates there. And so from the 7th to the 9th centuries, you have 3 massive insurrections. And the biggest one is called the Revolt of the Blacks, or the Revolt of the Zanj. It lasted from 868 to 883. These Africans actually marched on Baghdad. Arab armies were called from all over the region to put down this rebellion of African people seeking their freedom in the 9th century in Iraq. And the descendants of those sisters and brothers still live there today. I call these the invisible Africans because these are not people that we normally see on TV. And so for many people to acknowledge that you have the existence of huge Black communities in Asia is really quite a remarkable thing. And the revolt of the Zanj, or the revolt of the Blacks, reminds me in many ways of the Haitian Revolution. I think it would make a very, very good comparison to be able to just talk about a history of insurrection, a history of rebellion all over the world. I don't want to see us as just a people who suffered and got beaten down. Malcolm X used to say, cotton picking don't move me. But the African who plotted and carried out rebellions cut the master's throat. What can I tell you? Attempted to burn the master's house down, ran away, came late. You know, there's a story in the United States of a sister, I think she might have been from Kentucky, and she ran off from slavery and took her children. And eventually, make a long story short, she went to court and she was supposed to be returned to slavery. And so she cut her children's throats because she would not allow them to be returned to the light. It's hard, but it's inspiring that in spite of all the brutalities we have suffered, still we rise. And we have a history of that. So you see something similar to that in Asia. And that's how I got started.
Excellent. That's a very good start. But that makes me remember this Dessalines definition of Black. What? Dessalines says, every person who is Haitian is Black. He doesn't care what your skin looks like, what your eye color is, what your hair color, or where you were born. If you are an Haitian citizen, you are Black. People are like, what is this? What kind of nonsense this guy is talking? Yes. And when after, a lot of questioning, then he said, well, what is Black? Blacks are those who fight for freedom. Mm-hmm. So if we look at everywhere, in many places that we look, we'll find that generally the Black person, the Black group, the Black someone is involved in inspiring or leading or getting the freedom.
Give me that definition that Dessalines gave again. Please repeat that.
Blacks are those who fight for freedom. So your skin could be jet black. If you are for slavery, then you're not Black.
Okay.
It's not the skin. It's your actions that determines if you are Black or not. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the Constitution, the original Constitution of Haiti, the Imperial Constitution of 1805. It's one of the articles. All Haitians are Black. Will be referred to as the generic Black. So.
And this was said in 1805.
Oh,
that far back, over 200 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
We look at, so with you where we've discovered Black people are many places in Asia, places that we don't usually think of. How about Northern Africa, all that, those Arabs and stuff? What is your take? Have you gone that, have you researched that area?
Of course. Africa is the mother continent. Africa is the parent continent, and we're the parent people. And so you can go anywhere in the world virtually and find Black folk at some point in time, usually at the very, very beginning, but throughout for one reason or another, even in the Americas. I mean, let's just diverge for a moment. You have African people who, based on DNA analysis, are the people of Africa, the children of Africa, whatever term you want to use. Mm-hmm. The descendants of Africa, who were the first people to settle in the Americas tens of thousands of years ago. And then you have African people who come in more recent times and impact classical American civilization like the Olmec civilization. Mm-hmm. And then you have Africans captured and brought here as captives. And so Asia is very, very similar to that you have, different movements in ancient times and modern times. Well, at one time, all of Africa was a Black continent, and certainly North Africa. And it's ironic that in every North African country I can think of, even Libya, Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, the Black people are at the bottom of the social ladder. We might ask the question, and you probably addressed it. Why is it, and I can find to this. Wherever Black people find themselves, Australia, all over the Americas, even in Africa itself, of course, we know Europe, Black people are at the bottom. It's not just a local thing. It's not just in the Caribbean or the United States, but all over the world, we find ourselves in a very, very similar situation. And the Black people of Asia are no different than that. You have Black people who have been there for thousands and thousands of years in isolated areas, and they're oppressed. And North Africa is the same.
It's me, my comment was when I visited some of the so-called Arab countries, the first thing that struck me is that I would meet the Black people there were Blacker than any Blacks I have seen in so-called Black Africa.
Mhm.
When they're Black, they are Black, blue Black, number one. Number two, many of their countries have names that mean Black land. Whether we take Saudi Arabia, Black Arabia. Saudi means Black. So when you take in many of their countries, Sudan, that is Black. So in many, many places, you will find that even the name of the country tell you this is a Black land. So even though these people may have certain attitude, conditioned, or what I call conditioned attitudes towards Black people. But the other funny thing in Arabia is that so often you have a mother who have 8 children, and you have one who's blonde and blue eyes, and then another or 2 who are jet black. The 8 children look so different. But yet, if you look at family pictures, there are a couple of the children that will almost always be absent in family pictures. And I don't think I need to tell you which ones are not present.
I think it
And
was.
the same is true in politics. It's true. It's a structured thing. It's a structured program. That's what we have to understand. Okay? If we take it closer to home, Dominican Republic. Maybe you don't know Peña Gomez. Some of you may not know Peña Gomez. The only Black man who ran on the presidential election and won in Dominican Republic.
When was that?
The 90s, I would say, late 80s, early 90s.
Recently.
Peña Gomez is his name. Well, the powers that be negotiated with the man so he would not take the presidency and let the one who lost go up. And shortly after, he was sick and he died.
Well, let me ask you, why do you think, let me just make this point and then I'll ask you a question. I guess it was 1914, 1916 or so when Garvey formed the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. I'm a Garveyite. And when he was asked about it, he said, I looked around for the Black man's army, his navy, his men of big affairs, and I could not find them. And I wonder if we could ask that same question in 2020. So even though you have Black populations throughout North Africa and the Arab world, I don't know if you can point to any Black person in a position of power and authority. And pretty much the same thing all over the world. Now, I spent a lot of time recently in Colombia, all over South America, Colombia, Chile, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, etc. And you have Black people in all of those countries, and sometimes significant numbers. But I never see a Black person in a position of authority in government, in military, in banking, other than entertainment. And so it's the same thing, I think, in the Arab world. So when people say, oh, no, we don't have race here. I remember I've been to Morocco maybe a dozen times. I have friends there. We don't have race there. We're all the same.
Yeah.
But Black people in positions of power and authority.
True. In fact, 2 years ago, no, 2016, when I stopped in Morocco on my way to Mali, they took my passport and said, ID? What's that? I said, well, what is a passport supposed to tell you? The name of the country, right? What? And they talk to each other in, in Arabic. not knowing that I'm hearing everything. So they're saying, what kind of nonsense? And so they went on about their business. And, I said nothing. I let them go 15, 20 minutes. And finally they decided, yeah, it was a country. And so,
Have you been to Egypt?
Yes, I have.
And what was your experience there as a Haitian woman, as a Black woman?
Interesting. Very interesting.
Black woman from Haiti.
Especially certain parts of, yes, very interesting. But then a big difference is made by the type of contact that you have there also.
Yeah, of course.
But in the general public, yes, it's yes.
No, I'm thinking about the way different groups of Africans are perceived in different parts of the world. Now, I've been to Egypt, I think 25 times. I take groups there. I know those people are racist. I know they're prejudiced in general. But because I'm an African American,
yes,
I'm a level of deference that I don't see extended to other groups of Black folk, particularly those from the continent of Africa itself.
Absolutely true.
For me, the question is, it's a question of amassing power. I'm a historian because I believe that through knowledge of self, we can use that as an instrument for our people to amass power. For me, history is not just dates and facts and figures, it's life, and it's a tool. And so that's really my mission. So I travel all over the world gathering this information, but it doesn't do me any good unless I have a way to disseminate it. And so what you're doing, I think, is very, very important. And one of the reasons for that is that I think it introduces me and my work to another audience of people. So as messed up as this pandemic has been, there have been things that have come out of it that were very valuable to me. I never would have been on Zoom and StreamYard and web.
Neither would I.
For African people, we've always had these challenges. We've always had to meet these challenges. And we've met them, surmounted them. Now I just want to go beyond survival. I want to be powerful again. I want to be respected. I want to be left alone. I want Black people to be able to pursue their destiny without interference. So that's what I'm about for those who don't know me.
Well, welcome, welcome. And you speak as a son of Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who said the country that he is building is he wants to build a country where we are free, we are powerful, and we live in prosperity. Everyone lives in prosperity. So it's about freedom, power, and prosperity.
But it sure is a challenge. It's no joke, is it?
Right.
One of the things I've had to learn, since I've been doing this for a long time, is no matter how hard you work, you can't, the problems that we face as a people didn't start yesterday, and they're not going to end tomorrow. So I think I see some young people in the background there. One of the lessons I had to learn is don't give up. Don't throw up your hands when you don't see immediate results. We have been in this struggle for generations, and there are generations yet to come. And the other thing is, no matter how hard you work, no matter how strong you are, how brilliant you are, you can't do it by yourself. We need each other.
Absolutely.
And as a people, to learn to forgive each other and see the big picture. You know the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so these are things that I really reflect on a lot these days, and I show the images to try to enhance our vision of who we are as a people, a great and ancient and mighty people with a great future ahead of us. I do believe that.
That's true. In fact, here again, you don't stop quoting Dessalines in some way or the other. The Dessalines said that the nation is all those who have gone before us, all those who will come after us, and us. So he takes both ends first. And when I come across a term like Ubuntu, then I say, hey, we didn't quite understand Ubuntu, because it's not just talking about us that are present that do, but we're talking about in Ubuntu, Those who have gone, that's why you cannot determine, I'm going to do it because that's the way I want to do it. No, I have to do it because of what went before. What I do must honor those who went before me. I cannot be an Haitian president and I'm signing for foreign military to come in. That's treason. Because of what they did prior to 1804 and 1804, 1805, 1806. I don't have that opportunity. It's not for me to agree to military forces to walk on the land, because they said clearly, never again. Not only that, when we swore on January 1st, 1804, Dessalines made us all swear, those who were gone, those who are yet to come, all swearing on January 1st, 1804, that we will keep this land free from all forces of the universe, not just the planet. But we forget, or we don't know. They hide these things from us. And so we act like, well, I'm free. Democracy is whatever the slaver tells me. That's democracy. No, I can't go with this kind of. No, so we cannot do these things. We have to always be aware what was done before. If I'm in Brazil, I have to be aware what Zumbi fought for, what Dandara, fabulous warrior woman in Brazil, what did Dandara fight for?
What is this sister in Brazil? What is her name?
Dandara, Dandara.
And she was connected with Palmares?
Oh, yes.
Really?
And when Zumbi died, when they tried to arrest her, she just climbed up on top of the hill and told the earth, here, use my body. She flew up the top of a mountain, did not allow slavers to catch her.
So she would be comparable to Nanny in Jamaica then?
Absolutely.
She would be on that status?
Yes. We are, as we come to know our history, you see, one of the a big problem with Haiti, I shouldn't tend to think, we're the only one. That's not true. We have to understand the fighting spirit, the African fighting spirit has been all over.
Yeah.
And when you look at what they did, you'll see they did exactly what you did here. This one did it in 1773. For example, the women in St. Croix, 3 women had taken the island from the Dutch, from the Danes. And they kept it almost a year before the Dane could come back, aided by others, to put that island back into slavery and arrest the 3 women. But if we're thinking, oh, we're the only one, we're special, we are power, we're not like the other, we're not Africans, hey, you're missing out.
We should do a presentation together, because I've collected a number of photographs of statues, memorials to Africans in the Americas. For example, I have one from Suriname of a sister named Elida. Do you know Elida?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, Sister Bayyinah. Elida was, oh man, hey, a powerful sister.
Yes.
An enslaved woman who was coveted by the slaver. Make a long story short, this sister, she gave birth to the 3 greatest Maroon leaders in the history of Suriname, including a brother named Boni. It's just a fascinating story. We should do a presentation sometimes. I want to show you some of my stuff. Speaking of showing some stuff, I have some photographs. Let's load a few of them up, because the one in particular is pertinent to what we're talking about. And then we'll come back and talk about soup and all of that. France, are you ready? Or can I share them myself?
Well, yeah, if you could share them yourself, because I only have the photographs of the flyer that you sent me and the few stuff with us.
You have to enable me or make me a co-host, whatever, for a couple minutes.
Sure, no problem.
Tell me when you're ready. Just a few minutes. I think you all will like these, and I want to illustrate a point.
Yes, sir. Please do.
Yeah, here we go. Wonderful. Now, this is in a way a kind of synopsis of this webinar that I'm talking about, but one picture in particular I think is relevant to what we were just talking about. I use this a lot. Africa is the foundation. And then you have branches from the tree. And in this case, in the webinar, which is the 18th and 19th of February, I'm sorry, 18th, 19th of, my goodness, December, We're going to go east. So this is the area we're going to look at. We're going to look at Australia and the islands of the Pacific. And these are some of the pictures I'm going to show. Now, this is the one I'm talking about. This brother's name is Pimilwe. Now, Australia was invaded by the British officially on January 1st, 1788. And a group of 13 ships, what they call the First Fleet, landed in Botany Harbor in Sydney. And they met fierce resistance. This is 1788. This is just about the time of the ferment in Haiti, roughly the same time. And this is the great resistance leader. His name is Pimilwe. And so I suppose my point is, and this is something I've been talking about quite a bit lately, is that one of the mistakes we make in Babylon here as African Americans is that we tend to, speaking generally, see the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement here as isolated from the rest of the world. Martin Luther King was very different. Martin Luther King carefully monitored the African liberation movement. And Dr. King went to Jamaica to pay homage to Haiti. I'm sorry, to Marcus Garvey, went to Jamaica to pay homage to Marcus Garvey. So my point is, just like we identify the civil rights movement and the Black Power movements here in Babylon as limited to the US, even back then, in the days of colonialism and enslavement, it was a global struggle. In Haiti, in Africa itself, in the United States, in Brazil, but also in Australia. So Pimilwe is very important. And just the pictures, they look at the Black presence in the Pacific Islands. These sisters are from Fiji, or in Fiji. The Fijians say they come from Africa. And so this area allows me to begin to examine Pan-Africanism and African identity on another side of the globe. From Australia. Now, these are some Black folk who really suffered. The first people of Australia, they tell me they've been there for 60,000 years. And they have really suffered. They have been treated like two-footed beasts. They were not even considered human by the government of Australia until January 1967. That is correct. Until January 1967, not 1667.
Yeah.
67, they were considered flora and fauna. They were not considered human. And they are the most spiritual people I've encountered. Of course, in the Pacific, again, do you know that Black people are the first blondes and the first redheads?
Yes, indeed.
The Solomon Islands. And my brother Benny Window, who's part of the liberation movement in West Papua. This is in New Guinea, this is in Melanesia, the Black Islands. And the last photograph I show for just kind of a tease, I guess you might say, because I do want people to register for it. This is Truganini, this tragic sister from Tasmania. Most of her people were wiped out. Not all of them, but most of them were. Tasmania is a real place, and it was used as a prison settlement colony for the British, and they nearly wiped these sisters and brothers out. And the last full-blood Truganini here, I believe, died in 1802, 1803. I mean, 1876. Yeah. So this is around the same time as the struggles going on in the Caribbean. So anyway, those are just some of the pictures I wanted to show. I only have about 1 million of them, but I'm gonna end y'all suffering and advertise this webinar. Before the day is over, I'll show a picture of it or post it to you or something like that. But that's my contribution to today, sis. Your turn.
Thank you. Yes, sir. And that's precisely it. We need to come out of, I'm Jamaican, I'm Haitian, I'm this, I'm that, and look at ourselves as the natural guardians of our planet. We are everywhere, and when they harm somebody in Australia, it's me that is harmed.
That's right.
It's that important to each one of us. And remember, Napoleon said, my fight against Toussaint in Saint-Domingue is not motivated by commerce or money, but my purpose is to block the progress of Blacks across the planet. Mm-hmm. They attack us as a planetary move, and we respond in local moves. That's one of the weaknesses of our fight throughout the globe. We're always looking at it as, you know, hey, I have to defend, I'm from Petit Guave. So, you know, if they don't touch Petit Guave, then Petit Guave, you know, is okay. But how about the rest of Haiti?
Yeah.
Who cares about Petit Guave if you can't defend Haiti? And who cares about Haiti? In fact, Dessalines said that too. About the time that we were about to declare independence, Dessalines sent teams of people, delegations, to go see what's the situation in Jamaica, what's the situation in Puerto Rico, what is the situation in Cuba, see if they are ready for independence. And the teams came back saying, no, these people are not yet ready, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. There will be, he said, at some point there will be. So we must prepare for them. Now, Dessalines created on October 8, 1804, Haiti, Empire of Freedom. Most so-called intellectuals writing about that would say, well, we don't know how he could imagine just a little island being an empire. He doesn't understand anything. They would have all kinds of, in fact, they so reject that whole concept of empire of freedom. They are so blind to what it means. They don't even mention it in most history books. They don't talk about they talk about the First Republic, but the First Republic doesn't arrive until 1807.
Let me ask you a question. Let's stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
What is your impression of the work of C.L.R. James, the Black Jacobins?
He did a good work for what he had for the time and everything, but he is clearly of the communist, socialist, he adopts a communist, he looks at it with a communist socialist lens.
And you think that is reflected in that book?
I think some of it, yes, it does.
So.
Yeah, I think so.
And you think that's a flaw?
I do. Because if we're not looking at our own work, our own accomplishment with our own worldview, then obviously it's flawed. Mm-hmm. You know, it's the same if I'm, I'm writing Haiti's history, but I'm a devout Catholic. So what you're going to find that, like in the work that I admire a great deal, but Timon Leon Brutus, he would say things like, Dessalines was so brave, he did this, he did that. And then when he did such and such, and then he said, well, the problem was Dessalines was not baptized. Since he was not baptized, he didn't, he didn't submit to this. He did, wait a minute, you fighting or not?
What about the book by Edward Scobie?
Oh, Dr. Scobie.
Or the work of Edward Scobie.
Opened my world.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Scobie opened my world in understanding my own history. This is someone I'll always be very grateful to. Mm-hmm. Yes. It's somehow it's to me, in his writing and in his conferences, he's able to separate his own positions from his analysis.
Okay. All right.
A few people can do that. If they're Catholic, they put on Catholic glasses and look at everything.
What about this?
They put on Muslim glasses.
What about this book, the work of Antenor Furman? What is your impression of that book?
Antenor Furman
and that man.
Yeah, Antenor Furman is a fabulous African and Haitian thinker. Mm-hmm. Maybe the only thing I have, my drawback from his work, is that Antenor Furman is too schooled from other people's philosophy.
What are you saying? He's too academic?
Yes, it's not too academic, but he has submitted to academia in what he proposes to us. Mm-hmm. He is not free from what, even when he is in opposition to what the academia is saying, he still submit to it. And to me, you know, I'm not there, but is a great man, a great thinker, a great defensor of our folks, of our people. I have great admiration for him, and I think all his work should be read by everyone, and everyone should have their own opinion.
But you always come back to Dessalines.
True. That's right.
Okay.
Always come back to the Dessalines. He set the standard. I mean, the man tells you you are free from all forces of the universe. Imagine if we were all thinking that way. I'm going to do this because in the universe, blah, 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 blah. He's not limited to Haiti. He's not looking at America. He's not looking at the planet. I'm just training myself to look at the planet. That's what he was on. He was already in the universe.
Was he born in Haiti or was he born in Africa?
He is born in Haiti. He was conceived in Africa. His mother was taken pregnant. And right, his father was killed in the battle, in the situation where they took the mother. The father was killed. The mother was captured and sold in Saint-Domingue. So he was born there. But even then, his mom did not stay in the plantation. She ran away with a 7 months belly and managed to deliver her baby in the woods. She didn't want her child born in the plantation. So obviously these are people who had a concept of freedom and, you know, and it was pretty common from what I understand, pregnant women running away from the plantation, not wanting their child being born in the situation.
Okay.
But these are revolutionary women. Even if that's all they did is run away, find a space where there isn't white rule and supremacy to have their child being born. And that's where she met with Tantoya. And Tantoya, and when she felt death coming, she turns the baby over to Toya and say, please raise my child, make sure he knows freedom. And Toya, as a military woman, accepted the mission and decided that he wasn't just gonna know freedom, he was gonna bring freedom to everybody else. That was what Toya wanted to do. That's why she was here to run away herself.
Okay. All right.
So it's very important. In fact, our history, until we get to the women, we can't really understand what's going on. We can't understand because the women are like the key to what is it that this child is going to grow with. What is the essence of what's going to be placed in that child's soul? So, okay, we took a little look at Africa, Australia. Oh, by the way, Australia, when I visited Australia, it so happened that the ancestors arranged that I met a woman born the same day as myself, March 25th, 1948, who was in an old home, old people's home. Young woman, healthy. And I was, you know, it just blew me away. You know why? And in a wheelchair. Then she told me her story.
Tell me the story, and then when were you in Australia?
The story is that in Australia, when you are of native Australian descent, you must retire at 48. And if you sign for retirement at 48, then you will get a place to live. You'll have free medical, blah, blah, all the advantages, all the privileges. If you refuse to sign for pension at 48, if you sign at 49, then you lose everything. But when you sign, they never leave you where you have family. They take you away. If you're in the north, they'll send you to the south into a elder's home in the south. So you're totally alone. And the day you arrive there, when you arrive on both feet doing it well, there's a wheelchair, there's a cane, there's a walker, there's everything to cripple you up. And they give you all this medicine that you have to take, no choice. So within a couple of years, you are in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they cripple the people from 48 on. They don't want them to live. That's the biggest lesson I learned in Australia. The native people. If you're a white person, you can work until you're 99, no problem. But if you're a native of Australia, the 48, that's it. That's horrible. So I saw my own twin, and it's a very sad thing. They age very quickly. Their hair turn, by the time they're 50, they look like my grandmother.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a real struggle there. Maybe the only group of sisters and brothers, or one of the few groups of sisters and brothers that have it, I would say even worse than them, going back to Asia, are the Black untouchables. I consider them the most oppressed people in the world. And one of the reasons for that is because the level of oppression has been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. And so it's deeply ingrained that they are truly untouchable, and that the very shadow of presence will cause contamination to other people. And so it's ironic to me that the descendants of people taken through the door of no return and all the brutalities that occurred with that are now in such a pivotal position to shape and mold the entire African world. To me, that is a miracle. I think about that every time I go back to Africa, and I travel to Africa at least once or twice a year, that a descendant of somebody taken through the door of no return is now back in Africa, talking about African redemption. Because like you, I believe in the global unity of Black people and that we rise and fall as a family. One of the questions I would have for you is there a history of Garveyism in Haiti?
No, there isn't. There's very little. Haiti has been actually locked in an egg, is the easiest way to put it. Locked in an egg. Even
because of the
Black
language?
Power, even, all the big movements that happens around the world, you'll find that the government of Haiti, oh, please, don't even mention things like that. And if the few Haitians that would get involved, even more recently, there was a group of Haitians when Black Lives Matter and all of this around the world, there was a small group who did react, who did become involved. But do you know that 10 people in the street saying Black Lives Matter in the first Black Republic of the world got gassed?
Mm. Mm. So that's because of a history of repression in Haiti itself? Do you think that's okay?
Yes, because in reality, in a nutshell, my understanding is that after Dessalines, we went back to, with the Republic, we went to mimicking the colonizers.
I see.
So the laws and the dressing and the what, Dessalines said you will eat what you grow, and we're not importing anything from nobody's place. Well, in the Republic, we went to the wine from France, the good chai, the good cheese, and So
okay.
We went back to a colonist mentality. Until today, we have a dominant, through instructions in school, we become colonizers.
Okay. All right. Let's open it up to your audience. Perhaps somebody wants to ask a question or make a comment.
Who knows what he wants? Go ahead. Now, France, you take orders from the king, please.
Awesome. Well, I'm over here. I'm enjoying this conversation very, very much. So thank you, both of you, Professor Rashidi and Professor
It's a
Bello.
pleasure.
Yeah, so whoever is out there has a question, I mean, the floor is open. You go ahead and raise your hand in the raise hand icon so that you could go ahead into the participant screen in the queue, and then I could call on you to ask a question. Do you want to do some of your duties, Professor Bello, before we go
Yes, that's all. I almost forgot. The Kings opened the floor, so I chickened out.
No, go ahead. You're the queen. Go for it.
Let me do my duties, please. Thank you.
That's while we have a
With
moment.
the King's permission, of course.
All right, sure. So let's go ahead. All righty.
Thank you, Franz. All right, as you know, Bayyinah Bello is the work aiming to help Fondation Marie-Claire Heureuse Félicité Bonheur Dessalines to grow. So we are not here without a purpose. We're not here to talk. We're here to invite our people to reflect on things and then to act upon what we claim to believe. So to be in touch with Fondation Félicité, it's F, I never know this thing, Félicité 1804, Fondation-Félicité in Instagram, official Bayyinah Bello channel on YouTube, 509-2940-0869 by WhatsApp. And the website is www.fondationfelicite.com. And if you wish to donate on PayPal, it's fondationfelicite@gmail.com. As you know, this week this month, the entire month, we'll open up a campaign to raise funds for the soup. Our biggest activity our biggest upcoming activity is Freedom Soup. What is it? It started with the Empress Félicité, who was the first lady of Haiti. And as we came out of slavery, she's a woman who a natural healer. She's a natural healer. So she pondered upon what kind of food could we have if we all could not eat every day? What kind of food would keep us alive? And that's when she came up with what she called independent soup. It's made of vegetables and tubercules and whatnot. We will give you the recipe at some point. So she made this particular soup. She says, even if you go 10 days without eating, don't worry, make that soup and you will replenish your nutritional value. So that is a tradition in Haiti. Every January 1st, that's the food that everybody makes. But she went further. The Empress said, if you make the soup for you, your husband, and your children, it's not independent soup. It's just pumpkin soup. If you're making independent soup, it has to walk. That means a bowl of soup has to go to this old lady down the road who's living alone. Bowls of soup have to go to people that you think may not have the means to make the soup. Bowl of soup should be distributed. She herself used to have drums of soup at different crossroads, and anybody who wanted would come and get some. So this is what Fondation tried to repeat the work of the Empress by collecting the funds, and on January 1st, producing soup across the country, have different teams. On December 24 this year will be the Thursday. December 24 is the day we train people how to make a good soup, a proper soup. And then on January 1st, all the people who come to learn how to make it will go around wherever they are in the country, and they will distribute it in their area. So we create the teams that distribute across the nation. And this year, things have been very tough for Haitians in many, many ways. So we are planning to have a major soup at the largest public place in Port-au-Prince at the Chun Mosque. So we are looking to have major help. My dream still is, if we have 1 million people and each give $1, that's $1 million. But if we only have 100,000 people, even if we had 100,000 people and they each gave $10, we have the $1 million. But if we only have 100 people who give, well, I don't know if they have enough to make $1 million. So anyway, we're counting on all of you to help us raise this January 1st, which will be Haiti will turn 217 years old on that day. Haiti's independence will be 217 years. So we're counting on you to help us. We say thank you to the team who's working on the campaign. These are people from Bayyinah and Friends who have turned in volunteers on the campaign team. And this is the work that they have produced to help us raise funds around the world. So we are counting on you to help us spread the word all around you so we can raise the amounts we need to do the work that needs to be done. So imagine they're always doing what they do in Haiti, stealing all the wealth of Haiti, all the resources, and then pumping in our heads, Haiti is poor, Haiti is poor. So all of us, even the ones who have, think they're poor because they pump it so much. So by doing a soup where all type of Haitians would come together and share that soup together, that would be really fabulous in a time where there's lots of weapons being brought into the country, lots of shooting is being organized. We will go peacefully have our soup in the streets of Haiti. That's our plan. So we're counting on you to make it happen.
All right, I think we'll just leave it right there. So, all right, so let's go ahead. Our queue is starting to fill up. So let's go ahead with the first question. Clarence Petitpe, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question, please. All right, you have to unmute.
It is okay?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. Good morning or good evening, everybody. My English not very well. I'm calling from Paris. It wasn't a question. I wanted to give a testimony about what Professor Bayyinah Bello told about the history in the Morocco airport. I'm coming from a French colonized country named Cameroon in the Central Africa. I visited Haiti 2 years ago, and I didn't know nothing about a guy like Dr. Rodney. Why I'm saying that is that we need, as Black, we need to be more aware from literature or from education. But there's a lot of barrier between all of us to know each other. And that, from my point of view, one of the deep fighting we have to do in order to be together. That was the first remark I wanted to point out. Now, what can, in his experience, what can be to her the key point to put in front of the struggle today? That was my question to my Dr. Professor Bayyinah Bello. Thank you.
If I understand properly, what is the key point that we should put among ourselves today in the struggle?
The key point. The key point in the struggle.
The key points, I think, is exactly what Brother Ronoko Rashidi does. Go all over the world, look at our struggle, and bring it to all of us. Then we start to see how similar we are, how much we are the same everywhere. We have the same problems. It's brought by the same enemy, and it causes the same, it brings the same impact everywhere. Once we understand that, then if something is happening in Cameroon, I become aware. I don't say, oh, that's Cameroon, I'm Haitian. If something is happening in Puerto Rico, it's my concern. But we are educated in such small, little thing here and there, so we never can bind into a larger, because we don't have a larger view of our struggle. that's my thing. But maybe Professor Rashidi can
No,
expand.
I think you spoke to it effectively. I don't know. I think it's a biblical proverb or something that goes, "My people perish for lack of knowledge of self," or something like that. Information is very powerful. It determines everything. It determines how you see yourself. I say all the time, what you do for yourself depends on what you think of yourself. And what you think of yourself depends on what you know of yourself. And what you know of yourself depends on what you have been told. So we have to expand our knowledge base. Our struggle is not just in Cameroon, where our sisters and brothers are fighting right now. It's not just in Haiti. It's not just in the United States. It's all over the world. And we have a history. So I think knowledge of self really speaks for itself. And I think you pretty much addressed the brother effect.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Clarence. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Yes. Next.
All right. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Brother Clarence. Next question comes from Terrain. Terrain, go ahead, unmute yourself. Ask your question, please.
Hi, greetings. This is an open question. So as you know, most of the major leaders in our communities ground themselves in the principles of Ubuntu. And due to the rise of social media, we have a lot of social media has given a voice to a lot of people in our communities, and we have a lot of up and coming leaders in our communities. And there are certain rhetorics being spilled in regards to division. So if you're not fundamental Black American, you can't be a part of this group. What advice would you give to a young Black person trying to find their footing and hear those rhetorics? How should they respond to that?
I don't understand your question. I don't understand your question. Perhaps you could repeat it in another fashion. I'm not sure where you're going.
So the question here is, how should a young Black person trying to find themselves respond to a Black leader who is preaching division within the Black community?
That's the last thing we need is division. I think that one of the things we wanted, there is, and a lot of people are not, who are in our community are not working for our best interest. We have people in our community who are in the community precisely because they want to derail any kind of movement. So that we want to encourage people to do, and we want to produce, are critical thinkers. People are able to see through the nonsense and think critically, and also see the big picture. I never use words like tribes, and I never confine my struggle to Los Angeles or the United States. It's a global struggle. And so anybody who is any Black person who is not able to see the universality of our struggle, that's a person that should not be in a leadership position and should not be taken seriously. You know, I'm a Pan-Africanist. It's one thing Black people agree on, and we may not agree with much, but I think that one thing that we can all agree, you hear it all the time, Black people need to come together. Black people need to unite. We all agree on that. But I think that what we're doing is we're talking about unity on terms only. And it's either my way or the highway. So we have to be able to see the big picture, and we have to learn to work with each other. One of the things that we say all the time is that we are at war. White supremacy is at war with us, but we don't seem to act like that. I'm not talking about struggle when it's convenient. You know, I hear people say, well, I was going to do it, but it was far away. And I was tired, and I was hot, and it was cold. And I didn't like the people who were organizing the program. And then at the same time say Black people are in desperate trouble. We need to unite. We're at war. We have to be able to see the bigger picture and to realize that this is not that revolution, that empowerment. It's a better word. I don't think it's quite as scary. Empowerment, Black power, is not about when you have time or when it's convenient or when you like it. It has to become a priority. And it starts with you. That's how I would respond to that in a very general kind of sense.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Duran.
All right. Thank you, Tehran, for your question. All right. Next question comes from Marlene. Marlene Jean. Go ahead, unmute, ask your question, please.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Professor Bello and Mr. Ronoko, Dr. Ronoko, I believe. Well, my question is it's not really a question, it's a comment, since we were talking about that during the discussion along the line of getting Black people realizing that we are everywhere, and the same plot was used against all of us in different places, in different ways, but it's the same, it's the same thing. It was the same, it had the same effect. But especially in Haiti, I feel the problem we have with colorism and the effects of, the colonizers on us with the different colors, and then you add French into the mix, and it's a big thing in Haiti. They use that against, to divide the people, to make them think, you better if you speak French and all that. I think that is one of the things that is keeping us back. But unfortunately, I have to say, I've seen Haitians, they love it. They love that. They love that part of that. They love that the colonizers left them with that piece of candy. I can speak French. I'd rather speak French. I don't want to speak Creole. They don't like anything that's African, most of them. They like the colonizers' culture, language, culture, ways of being. They revel in that. But when it comes to the African part, there's nothing that they really, love about it. It's just now because natural hair is a fad. It's because it's a fad. It's not really because.
But sister, what about Doom? Don't most Haitians embrace that? Don't they see that as a part of their African heritage? Voodoo, Vodun? Or am I wrong on that?
Secretly, yes. Behind closed doors, yes. Yeah, behind closed doors. But most people think most Haitians are Catholic. During the day, on Sunday morning, yeah.
Let me ask you this, and I'm trying to learn now. Talk to me a little bit about this issue of colorism in Haiti. What is that about? Amplify that, please.
Well, maybe that Professor Bello can do that. It goes way back. It goes way back with the colonizers, obviously, the different class. It was caste system, the different that. The mulattoes, they had the money, they had the power, so they arranged it in such a way that the people with money, with the resources, were mostly light-colored people. And, the dark-skinned people ended up with not enough resources. They didn't have power. They didn't have, power. Not until, after Dessalines died, I don't know the history, but I know it was a long time before, Black men, real Black men, other than the Suluk and other things, can come back to power. So but still, we don't want to pick up the African part of ourselves and put it in the altar and say, this is who we are. This is where we start. To me, this is the biggest problem. Until we can do that, we're just dancing around the problem. We're just dancing around it because we all want to say, I've made it because, this and that, I know how to speak my French properly. This is why I made it. This is that. This is that. We're not proud of our African heritage enough. And it's certainly not promoted. Certainly not promoted.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for sharing.
The problem is simple. School. Okay. Haiti became independent 1804. 1860. 1804. Immediately, all the countries of the world denied Haiti's independence. Nobody recognized our independence. The first person who's going to propose recognition is the Vatican Church, the Vatican. And they come with a contract for us to sign. Article 12 says the government gives to the Vatican monopoly of public education. Monopoly means only the church can determine what a child in Haiti will learn. Only the church will write Haiti's history. So then, what do you expect? Everyone who goes to school is conditioned to be and behave and believe in certain ways, the way of the church. And the church, that's French. And the French, that's colonies, that's slavers. So then the instruction set us up as colonists. And to accept it, even in school, even in my school, in primary school, the nun would put the lighter skinned children in the front row, and then the next row, and then the next row, and the darkest ones in the back. So it is an institutionalized structure. It's not that the people don't want to. We have to understand that when we say we understand, we have to understand there's a conditioning that has created the structure as it is. So people don't really have.
Would you say that this mentality permeates Haitian culture even now in 2020?
It's still there. It's still there. It's still there. That's what's dominant. It's losing ground. As Catholicism loses ground, it loses ground. But then the Protestant, that's why the Protestant church is now invading Haiti to try to catch up where the...
Are the Chinese in Haiti? Are Chinese coming to Haiti?
They are not. They are not in mass like they are in Jamaica. They tried. They offered Haiti something like $600 billion to redo Port-au-Prince totally from A to Z. Somehow, I guess because of US decision, Haiti refused. Okay? So, but they are not. But there are some Vietnamese, there are some Asians are there taking different businesses.
I see. Okay.
Yes. But the Chinese have not been able to come in mass.
Okay, very good.
You're welcome. So far, they never give up. That's the other thing we must know. These people never give up. They fail 100 times, they come back 1,000 times. So.
All right, anyone else with a question or comment?
Oh, excuse me. I would add another element here. In Voodoo, for example, Africa is naturally present. It's not a decision. Africa is naturally present. The type of outfit we wear, the way we dress, the way we tie our hair, the song we sing in the various African languages, no matter how French you are outside of the ceremony, once you come inside the ceremony, then you're just naturally African until you leave, you know. So there is a different story.
All right, my sister.
You're welcome.
All right, so okay, so let's go on because we have a lot of questions in the queue. So let's go on to the next one. Yaya Marine Coleman. Go ahead and unmute, ask a question, please.
Yaya is calling from Belize.
Greetings from Belize, Mama Bayyinah, Bello Ronoko.
Hey, sister.
It's good to see everyone. Just a quick comment. I was able to be consistent before because I was living in the suburbs. Now I'm back in the inner city. So internet is not as reliable or consistent. So one of the beautiful things about us connecting is that people would come to me and say, yeah, what's the name of the man who traveled all over the world for fallible African people? Brother Ronoko. What is sister name when we come from Haiti? What name? So because we're making connections as people know who to go to ask specific questions. And then one of the things is that, like, I had somebody who wanted to donate Mama Bayyinah, but because Belize does not have the technology to donate, how do we create a space for people who don't have technology to make the connection, but have heard through Facebook, for example, and want to contribute in some way? So respect and give thanks to the ancestors that we're still connecting with all our challenges, and I send good vibrations and love to everyone who continue to do the work for our liberation.
Bless, sister.
Thank you very much. I will ask those who know better than me. You know, I'm highly technical, so, you know, I can't give you the answer. but I will ask the ones who know better, and I will send you the answer when I get it.
Thanks,
okay?
Mama.
So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Yaya from Belize, a big supporter. We always get a lot of Belize on this show.
Interesting.
Next is Jericho. Jericho, go ahead.
Thank you, Franz.
Ask the questions, please.
Hi, thank you, Brother Rashidi. Thank you,
thank you.
Professor Bello. My question is for Professor Bello. Earlier, you said there's a Haitian expression that was said, behind mountain, there are more mountains. I would like to know what it is in Creole.
Diamond Gamon.
Diamond Gamon.
Diamond Gamon.
Merci en pile.
Pas de quoi. Porte bien.
Merci.
What is that background behind you there?
Haitian mountains.
Oh, it's beautiful there. My God.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jericho. All right, next question is from Wajit Osset. Go ahead, unmute.
Hello, peace and blessings to all. Hello, Brother Franz and Mama Bello. And peace and blessings to you, Professor Rashidi. Thank you for, yes, greetings. Thank you for blessing us today. I wanted to ask about the story you mentioned earlier about the woman who, because I've heard about that story before, where a woman, she cut her children's throats in order to save them from slavery. Would you say, is that the same story that's in relation to Toni Morrison's book, Beloved?
I think so. That's from what I've gathered. It's a painful story, but it shows how strong the level of resistance. But it's similar to the stories we hear about, and I don't know how accurate it is, about mothers who threw their children overboard on the ships, you know, because they would not allow them to
become slaves.
That's very powerful. You know, when you think of let me tell you this too. This is something I don't know if a lot of people know. Do you know that in Senegal on Gorée Island, there's an infant's dungeon? And of course, the men and women would be separated. There would be dungeons for the men, dungeons for the women. But on Gorée Island, there was literally an infant's dungeon. Now, what kind of human being would enslave a child? And this went on for hundreds of years. Imagine your child yelling at you, Daddy, Mama, where are you? I'm afraid. This man is hurting me. I'm hungry. I'm cold. And this went on for hundreds of years. And I would say that the trauma of all that is still in our psyches.
Indeed.
We don't want to talk about it. It's so painful. So the idea of a woman cutting her children's throats, that's beyond words.
It is.
You know, many of our women, right after birth, would go on the battlefield with their newborn. They didn't leave their newborn behind. And NIT, Toussaint Louverture, in several of his letters, described this, how the women are the first to get on the battlefield with the children less than 10. And when the women's role was to dismantle the cannon, and if things got tough and the woman was having a hard time finding what to put in the cannon's mouth, she would take her newborn baby and stick it in the cannon. These are regular stories in all of our battlefields. We rather our child die than live into this kind of thing. The resistance. There was a woman in Vietnam. She was a warrior, and she always went with it. She was always pregnant, always having babies, just like Sunny Miller. But she would go on the battlefield with her newborn. They even claimed that she would be nursing a baby. When the battle got hot, she'd stick her baby's mouth in her breast and continued to fight. And she said, when they would ask, but how can you do this? She says, well, you know what? I am sure not to die when my baby's with me. Okay? So there are many different dynamics as to a mother on the battlefield with her newborn.
Yeah.
But always the woman knows that she has to make a choice. And when the time of choice comes, she decides what is best. And that's what we have to understand. She doesn't hesitate. When you are a warrior, you must be clear about how things begin and how they end. There is no flu. Flu-ness is what brings a lot of trouble.
Wow, thank you for that, Mama Bello.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Professor Rashidi. And
Yes,
also
sister, where are you from? Where are you calling from? Or where are you
I'm
located?
calling from Brooklyn, New York.
Okay, all right. Thank you, sister.
Yes, thank you. Many blessings to you.
And to you.
All right, so next question, let's go to Peggy. Peggy's iPad. Go ahead, unmute yourself, ask a question, please.
Sure. Hello, and thank you so much for doing this presentation. I learned so much. I just wanted to comment on the language issue that this previous sister talked about. It is a very real thing. When I was a kid growing up, I'm born here in the States, and my parents are both from Haiti. When I was going to school, you know, as a kid, we spoke in the household, French and Creole were spoken. When I went to school, the teachers told my parents they have to pick a language that, you know, they can't speak all these languages, they'll get confused, they can't learn. And so now there was a huge debate between my mom and my dad. What should we teach them? You know, French or Creole? My father wanted French, my mom wanted Creole. Mom won. And I'm so happy that she did, because in learning the Creole and understanding it, I feel empowered. I feel as though I've truly learned what Haiti is. Now, I visited Haiti a few times, and when I speak it, the people will say, "Long ou lou?" And I said, "Vous comprenez?" You know? And once they said yes, I'm like, okay, pas de problème. At least I don't have one. And if you do, my grandmother used to say, "Ou met coucher côté." And I would say that even though I know it's rude. But I also remember my mom saying that when she was a kid, that in school in Haiti, she went to Catholic school, that the nuns literally taught her that Africans were animals, and that, you know, that the Creole language was too close to that and she mustn't speak it. And she said to me, it was when she came to America and she actually met people from Africa. She said, "What nonsense was this? What nonsense?" So there's definitely something very important in your language, in your own tongue, that connects you to who you are and where you come from and what we're about. And not just, you know, Haiti, but all of us. And I know I'm jumping into something else. I think that because Haitians have that Creole language, which sort of puts them closer to Africa in some ways, maybe that's why there seems to be a lot of, I guess, this not, there's not as much togetherness. Right, and I want to be careful because we do acknowledge each other, but there is this kind of not togetherness, and I think.
What you mean among Haitians?
No,
When you say
among,
not togetherness.
I'm talking about the not togetherness between Haitians and other Blacks in the diaspora.
The children of Africa.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. That's what I wanted to say. So I love this dialogue, and I love that we're talking.
That's a very sensitive topic,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a very important topic,
Mm-hmm.
because I've always wondered about. See, I love Black people. I don't care where you're from.
Me too.
As long as you're a Black man, as long as you're a Black woman, we family.
Yes.
But I do hear these stories about friction between different Black communities, African Americans and Haitians, and I hate that. Or African Americans and the Jamaicans or the Nigerians. I hate that. But apparently it's real.
It is.
And you know, and these are perceptions that we have to break down, all this tribalism and stuff.
Agreed. And yes. Okay, so yes, that's it. But thank you so much.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Peggy. Appreciate it. With the mask on and everything. Great question.
I'm at work, so I have to keep it
I
on.
was going to say, don't say it. She's at work.
It's okay. I got the headphones.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in from
Of
work.
course.
Okay, so we have a question from the chat room. Fitzgerald Bontemps. Go ahead, unmute yourself and ask a question, Fitzgerald.
Yes. So basically, I came in 1 hour late, but from listening to the conversation, right? From listening to the conversation, I was hearing that, like, I was hearing about I was hearing about Haiti, Haiti, right? Yeah, I get that experience a lot too, being that, like, I'm very surprised at the way Haitians react every time I talk about Africa. So there's this division. Not only there's this division, right? There's this moving away that Haitians have about Africa too. So we did talk about that, and I didn't really have a question today, but I wanted to pinpoint that today. But the only question I have today, being that I was 1 hour late, how would I catch the 1 hour I missed?
All right. Well, you know, I always post these sessions on YouTube. So once we're done with this session, then this evening I'll post it on YouTube, and then I'll send the link out to everybody.
I want to share it too. I want to share. It's a very important discussion. And so I'd send it to me ASAP. As soon as you get it, it's on my Facebook pages. And I have about 12 Facebook pages. And I want to talk about the Sioux Project. I want to help promote that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now I remember the question I wanted to chat. Now I remember the luncheon. Yesterday I bought some African perfumes yesterday, right? When I bought some African perfumes, now I told my parents at home, I'm like, listen, I bought some African perfumes, smell it. And then they smelled it, and then they said that, oh, it smells like luncheon. It smells like luncheon. Get this out of here, it smells like luncheon. But to me, it smells good to me. To me, it smells good. So I don't get that. Is that the Haitians, like, basically trying to get it away from the Africanness?
Are you Haitian, my brother?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right.
All right. What I would suggest tomorrow, tell your mom or dad, whoever, you just got this beautiful perfume from Paris. How did they feel about it? And give them the same thing. All right? Then you'll be clear.
That's funny.
I'm sure he'll get a complete opposite reaction. All right, thank you, Fitzgerald. So look out for the recording later on this evening, all right? Okay, we have another question from the chat from Juvens. Juvens, go ahead, unmute yourself, ask a question, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. First thing first, I want to say that humble. I'm really glad to be in such wonderful people's presence. Well, my question, I have set questions for both hosts, for both interviewers. I apologize. And the questions are, well, we've been to whenever, like, we're making progress in Black community, for instance, just like this audience, for instance, used to, based on what I learned, he used to buy slave from Haiti. From the U.S. He used to buy slave in the U.S. from the U.S. government for about like $50, okay, and he used to set them free in Haiti. But now you have a country where Haitians are kidnapping Haitians, and they, we kidnap each other, and then we release them. We release the people that we kidnap, like, for millions, or for more than a lot of money, right? So the question is, whenever we move forward, we always like go 10 steps backward. For instance, like you have it in, for instance, Malcolm X or Dr. King, who fought for their people, and they were killed by, it's still not answered. They were killed by the same people they were fighting for. So it's like we always go back and do.
Wait a minute, wait. Say that last part. They were killed by who?
Well, I mean, it's still unanswered. It's
Martin Luther King was shot by a white man.
But I feel like we're not protecting the people who are fighting for us. We don't protect them enough.
I can't argue
in our community. For instance, like wherever else, like there's revolutionaries or where other people are fighting for their people, the people protect them, but we don't protect our leaders enough. We leave too much work for our leaders to do by themselves, and they don't even have. For instance, I'm not too sure, but even when the people are gone, we don't make sure we do what we're supposed to do for their family, as far as security, as far as financial, like make sure that we set them right. So I have like it's not just one question that I have, but it's the contour like of many questions that I have when we have people for Africans, for instance, or in our community, when we make one step forward, we always make 10 steps backward. And I'm sure Dr. Bayyinah or Mama Bayyinah know what I'm saying when I said they started, for instance, used to set slaves free. They used to set Black people free. But now you have Haitians who are kidnapping Haitians. So 200 years later, so you have Haiti in a worse position. But
isn't a lot of that driven by desperation? I mean, I don't think people kidnap just because that's what they want to do and they get a thrill out of that. Are we driven by desperation to do desperate things? That's the question.
But it shouldn't be that. It should. I mean, I'm sorry to say that to you, but we should disregard that, even if that were to be the case. But they're still doing it.
Great. But I think there's also sometimes a danger of making the victim an even greater recipient of victimization. In other words, you don't seem to have questions, you see concerns, and those are legitimate concerns. But I think that they can also be addressed. I know, we're just talking. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Sure. If I can interject, no, go ahead. You can go ahead and say anything you want.
No, we're just talking now.
What I really want to say is this. And in the Black community, or for Africans, which I like to call myself, like Africans, for instance, where you're like, you Black or you're African. But for us, we need to make sure that whenever we're making a progress, what kind of progress we should make so it can last for the longest. Because we've been having this conversation for so long, and we always have like really smart way to see things. And if you're listening like to Malcolm X, certain things that he said, it's still remain the same. Nobody can say it better. But at the same time, we're not making any progress. And as far as
agree with
us,
let me say something. Maybe we put too much in. This is a question now, because I have more questions than answers. As you get older, that tends to happen, I suppose. But maybe we put too much emphasis on leaders. John Henry Clark used to say, bury the man and continue the plan. They're going to take our leaders out. It happens all the time, but that doesn't mean that the concept and the struggle dies with those leaders if we have a program. People come to me all the time and say, Dr. Rashidi, what should we do? To me, plans are easy. It's the implementation of the plan that's hard. in order to implement these plans, we have to change our behavior. I believe that white supremacy exists because we allow it to, because we feed it. And the moment we cease feeding white supremacy, it will collapse. But that means we have to change our behavior. And that can be tough. People say, Dr. Rashidi, I love you. But when you said black men need to be with black women, I lost respect for you. When you said I need to take down that image of white Jesus, I can't. That's what I've been taught to believe all the time. When you said we had to learn to forgive each other and spend money with each other, I can't do that because we are feeding white supremacy. In order to destroy it, we must transform who we are. And no leader can do that. I think that we have to do that collectively. The revolution starts with us, not with the leader. I know I'm preaching, but those are some things I wanted to share.
Thank you, thank you. And if I can add one more thing, I would also like to hear Mama Bayyinah what you have to say about what I just said. And the last question I would have is, if you can also tell, I mean, you know, that's not an easy question that I have. Well, how did Creole come about? You know, how the language altogether. If you can tell me or tell us about that, I would really love. You might have another seminar about that, but you know, I would really love you to, I mean, to tell me some key point.
All right.
But thank you so much.
Thank you for your questions and your comments. All right, let's deal with language. Every book that you will read will tell you that Creole is come from French, patati patata, wadadadadada. In our language, we have more than 35% Dahomean vocabulary, which is hardly ever mentioned. If you go to Souvenance, you go to the celebration in Souvenance, there are at least 2 of the 4 or 5 days that they sing and dance. There are at least 2 days that only if you come from the Yoruba Fon language will you understand what's going on. But I should sing day long all kind of the various languages of Fon and Dahomey, in the Fon or Dahomey language, without knowing anything about the language, but we know all the songs. Okay? And if a Loa comes in, if you're from Dahomey, they will speak to you and you will speak to them. But the person next to you or the same person, when the Loa goes away, then the same person cannot continue the conversation. So all this is just to illustrate the presence of Africa in the language and in everything else that we do. Okay. Now, for what you were talking about before, if you look at our history from the established structure given to you by Euro-Christians, which means that our history begins in 1492, you're already off and you're gonna see everything upside down. If you take from different African moments, if we take our history from 10,000 years ago, from 25,000 years ago, from 100,000 years ago, when you take it there and you say, okay, the past 2,000 years, you Christians have dominated the planet, therefore have imposed their way of life to others. Okay? You want to talk about people doing kidnapping in Haiti? We're talking about young boys who cannot buy a piece of bread and own a $50,000 gun. How come? But you're not looking at where did this gun come from? Who gave it to him? Because he couldn't bought it. He couldn't have bought it because he can't buy the $5 piece of bread. How come he owns this? How come he has tons of ammunition to shoot all day long? How come? Who gave it to him? Those are the questions we need to answer before we can decide that our people are or are not. So we have to look at the structure, and then we look at, when you're looking at it globally, you say, oh yeah, they did the same thing in Somalia. Oh, they did that for 10 years in Ivory Coast was like that. Oh, Mali is, it's going on in Ghana. So then you're gonna say, all the places where there's shooting, there's kidnapping, there's this, these are all places where people have a lot of resources. They have a lot of things for people to steal. So isn't all of that the game that they put up front? So everybody's so busy worrying about who's kidnapping who's shooting who, and we don't see the real thieves going away with the diamonds, with the uridiums, with the gold, with the whatever you have. So we have to be more astute and more discerning in the things if we want to do a serious analysis. And I will close with this. 100,000 years of our street, if we have 100,000 years of our street, and in that 100,000 years, we have 2,000 years, and let's say I could even be very generous and say 3,000 years of domination. What does 3,000 years represent to 100,000 years of existence? Not very much. Then we would say, if I really want to know who I am, I need to go find out what was I doing prior to 3,000 years of occupation and domination. That's when I'm going to know. When you're looking at, for example, in Kemet, reigns of 54 years, 60 years of ruling without corruption, without a whole bunch of things. Everybody is regretting this ruler when he's going away. People want to be buried with him. When we look at Tahaka in South Africa, there are many parts of the best part of our history is not in the books. So we need to get to those. Then we would have a better idea as to who we are, what we can do, and which way for us to go in the future. But right now, if there's one thing we must be aware of, since we are in the reign of domination and imposition, what we do is not who we are. We have no control over it. We don't buy the guns, but the guns are in our country. Most of us didn't notice that this business of kidnapping came to Haiti during the occupation by UN forces. The UN forces were from what countries? What South American countries, where kidnapping has been established as a way of life for the past 20 or some odd years. So when these military people came to Haiti, they brought in their way of doing things. And the last thing that we need to notice, Juvens is your name? Okay. Juvens, everybody knows Juvens as a kidnapper. He is on every réseau social, what do you call it? The Facebook and the this and the that, and he's saying he's gonna do this and he does that. Fine. But he still lives in the same place. He still wears the same clothing. He doesn't look like his life is better, but he's earning 50,000, 100,000. What happened? Who is he giving the money to? Who is his boss? That's what we need to know.
Brilliant analysis.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We always ask why. We always want to get deeper, right? Whatever is on the surface is not necessarily what the answer is. You got to dig deeper to get the true answer. So thank you, Juvens. Thank you for that question. All right, we have a couple of more questions, but we only have 5 minutes left. So we'll probably take these last two questions, and then I want to promote Dr. Rashidi's webinar that he has coming up, and then we could go ahead and get a final word from Professor Bello, and then we'll close out this session. So next question comes from Valerie. Valerie Ingrid, go ahead, unmute yourself, ask a question, please.
Hi, Brother Franz. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody. Sorry, I'm busy. Sorry, I'm so sorry. To King Rashidi and my Queen Bello, thank you for your time. And I'll try to make this quick, but I wanted to, I had a question on Mr. Rashidi of what you spoke about before about togetherness. And I know that could be a little touchy, but I wanted to touch base on that because I know in order to have togetherness, you have to have some sort of changing of behavior within yourself. So for me, I feel like what I try to do with my own people, and that goes with every type of person from African descent, is just being kinder. So when I see a person of color, especially a Black person, I'll say hi, you know, and then things like that, and just be sweet, because, you know, I know we don't get that, you know, often every day when we walk by each other. But I just wanted to speak about togetherness, because from my point of view, I have, I actually look forward to having more togetherness with my people, and communicating and having more intellect and conversation. And on the other note is that I noticed there's white individuals, if you will, that also see our cause and say, oh, you know, we understand, so to speak, and, you know, we want to help. And, you know, they kind of show their interest in knowing that what the struggle is for us and what we're trying to do. And then not only that, they're understanding that we're not backing down to making our voices heard. So my question is that, do we still have to have a togetherness with those type of white people? Because at the same time, I'm still you know, a respectful person, regardless of who you are. But at the same time, knowing what I know, and especially learning about my history, when I see a person that's white, I can't help but get not too defensive, but just fall back, as more so I would with someone of my own color now, you know? So I don't want to lose the insight of being too, I don't want to say radical, if you will, but I don't want to lose the insight of my heart, I guess. But because I know that we all have to work together in terms of business, and then there's white people in the business. And, you know, I just don't want to lose and have my, you know, strong energy come out and, you know, in turn to assume that, you know, I can't stand them. And it's so funny because, you know, there's stuff I don't like of history, but at the same time, I know these people didn't cause me to have an impact, the ones I'm speaking of currently, but there's still questions on, do we even give them the time or day? And I hope that made sense.
All right, real quick, I'll just say something very quickly. We do need unity, but you can't wait for Black people to unite. I'm saying that you have to start with yourself. We have to work on unity in our community, but you can't wait for that. There are things that we can be doing on a practical basis. As for white folks, I say white folks can and have a valuable contribution to make, but ultimately only Africans can free themselves. Okay, so it doesn't hurt to have allies, but the struggle is on us to save us. That's what I'd say.
Definitely. And thank you so much for that. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Knowledge of self is key. Once you know yourself, you and I will get on. If you know yourself, I know myself, the two of us will get along fine. To the degree that I know myself, I will know you. To the degree you know yourself, you will know me. And we will see the vision forward. But if you have no idea as to who you are, and I have no idea as to who I am, the two of us, we can only fight all day long for anything. We will argue that Francis' thing is not Bookman written on there.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's go to our final question of the afternoon, and that comes from Val Genti. Val, go ahead and unmute yourself, ask a question, please.
First, I want to say honneur respect, and thank you, Bayyinah, Professor, and Dr. Rashidi for being here.
Thank you, sister.
I just wanted to ask any tips on just sound, because I know sound, you know, is changing. And of course, you know, I'm hip to, of course, you know, ICMA, but I'm just, you know, curious to if there's any tips on any sound, you know, specific sound that we can tap into so that we can stay grounded.
Sister Bayyinah, I leave that one for you.
Thank you. Well, instruments, various instruments, there are many instruments that are healing instruments. And in fact, any instrument at the hands of a master, of a knowing person. You know, for example, the drum. The drum is used, and when you say the drum, you're talking about, I don't know, maybe there are hundreds of drums, different types of drums. every African nation has a series of drums. In Haiti, in Vodou, we start with the battery of 5. Each one of them has a specific sound that it gives off to do specific things. There is the drum that will call on war. There is the drum that will calm your down. There is the drum that will mark the beat. Each have their own. Then you have what is called the talking drums in Africa. You have, it's unlimited what you can do with the drum. But the drum, one of the way that we look at the drum is it's a heartbeat. So you can use the drum to slow down people that are going too fast, and you can use the drum to make those that are too slow to go faster. People who know can use the drum for healing. Many healers use different instruments. And the drum is one of the, so it's a whole course we wouldn't be able to do here. So we have to, but there are people using their music as therapy, music as a healing power. So that's not my field. I'm just dapping in there, the Brother Rashidi was much smarter. He threw it at me.
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm.
I tried, but it's not my field. I do not know, but there are those healers and therapists who use musical instruments to do different work. So you should, get in touch. Maybe Joelle, one person who comes, I think Joelle uses, Joelle Dussac might be one person that I know is involved with healing. There are a couple of people. I have to find some names for you. Send me an email, and we try to identify a few people that could give you information on that, more valid information than what I said.
So much. Merci en pile.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Val. Thank you. All right, that's our final question for the afternoon. I know a lot of you still had questions, but I know Dr. Rashidi just put his email address and his website in the chat room. So I'm sure he's sharing that with everyone to get in contact with him. If you have questions or want to continue any type of conversation, he's gracious enough to have put his email address and contact information in the chat room. So go ahead and use that. And then of course, you always know how to get in contact with Professor Bayyinah Bello. So thank you everyone for your questions. My favorite part, it always inspires great answers. So I want to throw it to Dr. Rashidi because, prior to the webinar, he let me know that he has something coming up as well. So I would like for you to share that with everyone, Dr. Rashidi.
Well, just very briefly, thank you for having me today. I've had a wonderful time. I've learned a lot, and that means a lot to me. I want to talk next time about Bookman. I've been looking at that cap since the moment I saw your face and the role that he played in our liberation. Anybody can always get in touch with me. My email address is ronoko@hotmail.com. The website is drronoko.com. Very easy and very accessible. And the webinar is the 18th and 19th. It's a part of a global African series. We've done Europe, we've done Asia, we've done Black women in the ancient world. And this month we'll wrap out the year with the Black presence in Australia and the Pacific. Again, anyone can contact me at ronoko@hotmail.com. Dr. Bello, I want your book, and I don't want to get it from Amazon.com. So send me information so I can purchase the book. Let me know about the soup project, and we'll be doing an interview with you. You won't be able to get out of it. I'm going to ask all the questions next time in February, because there's so much to talk about. I love Black people, okay? That's the key.
So do I.
Love yourself, and everything else falls into place. So thank you for having me. Blessed love, and enjoy the holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Please send our brother the book.
And send me the link to the video. Send me the link to the program so I can share it.
Okay.
This is the book. This book right here is yours, Dr. Rashidi. So.
Yeah, but I want to purchase one too.
Okay. All right.
I know each other.
All right. So I'll definitely be in contact with you after this is over, and then I'll make sure I get all your information so we can make that happen.
Blessed love.
We need the book in the UK as well, please.
Will do. I'll put a link to the book in the chat room. So, all right. So thank you, Dr. Rashidi. Dr. Rashidi, that was a great appearance, great knowledge shared, great wisdom shared. Much appreciated. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it back to Professor Bello to give us a final word.
Thank you, Franz. Thank you to all, to each and every one of you who have been with us this afternoon, and who have been with us with all these weeks and all these months, who have supported us in all the things that we've tried to do. Thank you very, very, very much to all. As we close today, I remind you, you are a divine person. You have all the power sleeping in you that you need to awaken with specific gestures, specific thoughts, words, and actions. So awaken the divine in you so you can tap into your power, so you can turn this world into what it was supposed to be, not what it is now. Assume your divinity, assume your power, and let us get to work. Thank you very much. Be great, be divine, be you. See you next time.
Ashe, peace and blessings. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thursday on Friends. So peace and blessings. Have a great week.
Have a great remaining week, everybody. Brothers and sisters. Ashe, Ashe, Ayibobo.
Hi, thank you, Ashe.
All right. See you, everybody. See you next Thursday. Take care. Have a good one.
Take good care.
Wow. Bye, Franz.
Wow. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, Dr. Ya.
Bye.